The Black Keys.
Okay.
And many more.
Okay. Let's get rid of that volume envelope. Let's introduce this volume envelope. And let's get those noisy black keys out of the mix. And they can just kind of go away.
And many more.
Grab the portion here at the end.
And many more. Starting this week, just listen each Friday at 92.3 WTTS.
Okay. I didn't want to be there. Let's get rid of the audience.
Free Ticket Friday. From Indy's official summer concert station, 92.3 WTTS.
Now, this is not how I would finish this, but it does look like we're starting to run out of juice a little bit. So let's just kind of neaten this up a little bit.
Just listen each Friday at 9, 11, 1, 3, and 5 o'clock to call in and score on Free Ticket Friday. From Indy's official summer concert station, 92.3 WTTS.
Okay, we're pretty close to at least a little something we can call finished. Let's clean up our volume envelopes just so we can see everything and go start to finish.
It's the most wonderful time of the year.
Not quite. We're talking about the summer concert season. And this summer, it's easy to get into the best TTS shows in town because every Friday is Free Ticket Friday. Your chance to see Steely Dan.
Are you reeling in the heat?
Ray LaMontagne. The Black Keys. And many more. Starting this week, just listen each Friday at 9, 11, 1, 3, and 5 o'clock to call in and score on Free Ticket Friday. From Indy's official summer concert station, 92.3 WTTS.
Okay. There are lots of things I would change about this. I would start Andy Williams much closer to It's the Most Wonderful Time of the Year. I would shorten the Black Keys. I would probably open this spot up a little bit and bring up the crowd sound, just kind of a swell for a moment before he continues. And I would find some chunk probably of the Black Keys that's largely that instrumental portion that could be looped and run it under his voice for the remainder. Probably not going to do all of that right now since we've been at it for an hour, and I want to move on to sort of how we finish a project like this. By now, by the way, we should go ahead and save that for safety's sake. Any questions, by the way? Start with Alessio.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
I was gonna ask this earlier when we were talking about groups.
Mm-hmm.
With Reaper, whenever you group things, if you were to like shrink or I guess enlarge any of the things in the group, would it apply it to the entire group or just the one?
Just the one if you have only the one sound file selected. So let's go ahead and group these three, but select just one file, and you see it's just affecting that. Let's undo it. But look what happens if you select more than one file.
That's really cool. So I was gonna say for a while it was kind of a pain to find the right software that would do that.
It's snuck up on me. It's a feature that I had never seen before in a DAW. It's becoming much more common, but yeah, that thing is powerful, the ability to do that. You can see why I have so much affection for a $40 program. I mean, this thing is a monster. Yeah.
I was just wondering, would you have chosen an instrumental track at the end just because the voices would compete?
Yeah, I don't like to have voices competing if at all possible. And it's just so easy with software like this to create loops. I mean, one of the best loops I think I ever did was a drum loop. You really want fun sometime. Go and grab the drum break in the middle of John Mellencamp's Jack and Diane. because Kenny Aronoff was in real danger of getting fired at that point. And in order to really prove that he belonged on the session, he did this unbelievably heavy drum break in the middle of an otherwise largely acoustic song. What's funny about it is if you pull that loop out and just make it into a drum loop, you'd love using this sometime. Play it for people out of the context, it sounds like it belongs in a heavy metal song. I mean, it sounds like heavy metal drums. I have used that loop so many times. It's really easy to grab a little chunk of this, and we'll do that in the future. We'll do something where we really loop the heck out of something. Okay. Now, something that we haven't really worried about so far is relative levels between tracks. And we haven't done that because I'd like to illustrate why this project is a little bit screwed up right now first. And we're going to do that by actually, backing up a moment to the whole, this is non-destructive editing, therefore we haven't changed any of the original sound files. Well, yeah, we haven't changed any of the original sound files, but this file also doesn't exist as a single sound file. It's a collection of files in a project. We need one sound file that mixes all of these together. Reaper, like a lot of DAWs, has gotten away from calling it mix and has picked up the industry standard term for multimedia, render. Fortunately, rendering audio is nothing like rendering video from the standpoint of it's not going to take you 2 weeks to render this file. So we're going to render it, and we're going to render it down to WAV. Now, very, very quick comment about WAV versus MP3. All of the files in this project and on the server are MP3 files. I did that for expediency, so it wouldn't take you forever to download them. You typically only want to work with a WAV file or an AIF file because you want to work with lossless audio. Difference between lossless and lossy, some of you know it already. For the benefit of people who don't necessarily know it and don't want to raise their hand and say they don't know it, lossy audio basically says, I want my file to be smaller. In other words, when MP3 players first came on the scene, the iPod first came on the scene, using WAV files wouldn't have been very good because you would have had a 64 megabyte MP3 player, which would have carried around, or media player, which would have carried around about 6 songs. Well, we had that with the Walkman. And so lossy audio allows you to take a file that's this big and reduce it down to maybe 1/10 of its size. And the difference between WAV and, say, FM quality MP3, say 128 kilobit per second MP3, is about a 10-time difference. You can make a file 10% of its original size. But you do that by removing some of the sound quality. So literally, an MP3 does not sound as good as a WAV because it is missing parts of the original sound. You never get that back. The other thing is that when you are editing MP3 and you mix it down into another sound file, you run the risk of creating digital artifacts, what used to sound like pops and crackles on records. It doesn't happen as much as it used to, and it's not going to happen in a session where you're going from MP3 to WAV like this. But if you did MP3 to MP3, thank you. If you did MP3 to MP3 and then mixed it to MP3 another couple of times, eventually the degradation of sound quality would be huge. So you try whenever possible to use a lossless sound format. I'm not going to lie. People use MP3 to transfer files around, mix, and use them professionally, especially in radio, all the time. It's just not ideal. So let's go ahead and I'm going to do this as a mono file, just because it's going to illustrate the dynamic range a little bit better. We're going to save it as a WAV. You can actually mix down to MP3 using Reaper, but you have to have the lame library installed, and we don't. So let's render it. Yeah.
I had a quick question about the sample rate.
Yeah.
Normally I make sure everything's like, what is it, 48,000?
Yeah.
Yeah. I usually make sure that that's it. Does it matter if it's any lower or any higher?
I actually almost always do 44.1.
Really?
Because honestly, for the type of work that I do, which is largely radio work, feature news stories, things like that, you really won't notice the difference. And that's, I think, really subject of a future, we talk about having social events. I think that the New Media Club needs to have a social event in which we talk about file types, perhaps in a context where we're not just sitting in a cold auditorium talking about mind-numbing numbers, but can talk about it in a more casual and comfortable environment when we talk about mind-numbing numbers.